Videogame Vegas.
He's so cute.
Friends, Videogame Vegas, welcome to my channel. I often appreciate channels who provide introduction videos. The obvious reason, it gives you a bit of what to expect from that creator. It can also serve another purpose, as reference of answers to common questions covered herein. This could help cut down on repeating oneself and re-answering the same questions over and over again elsewhere. I may provide a link to this video in my other videos for easy reference, or even share it or parts of it with others from time to time. So what is the Videogame Vegas channel? Simply put, a place for me to share. Anything really. Though YouTube will tell you it's better to focus on just one or two topics to make a channel successful. And maybe that's what this channel will be. But I think success is different for everyone. YouTube will tell you views, engagement, subscriber count, video exposure, and most enticing, revenue, are the measures of success. For me, it's simply the ability to share, regardless of all that stuff. Everything beyond the sharing for me is superfluous, a bonus. I guess you can expect some video game stuff, maybe a bit of Vegas stuff. We'll see where it goes. I plan to make videos on any topic that interests me, regardless of what the channel title suggests. But as to avoid sounding too generic, here are a couple video types I'm most interested in making right now. Thank you videos. I plan to make some thank you videos, thanking people, entities, and things I want to recognize positively. These videos will be mostly or completely void of critical banter, as that isn't their intent. That doesn't mean I don't have anything critical to offer, it just means these videos are meant to focus on the positive, and I want them received that way. Look for more critical stances and takes in reviews and other content I produce. Speaking of reviews, I also plan on doing review videos, mainly gaming related. I'll post the specific details of each rating system below the individual video, as they most likely will vary from product to product. Something that's probably most important when considering my video game reviews. I only play a game as long as I want to, and will absolutely stop playing a game if I'm no longer having fun, even if there's a promise of better gameplay later in the game. There are just too many games I want to play, and I want to spend the most time with the ones that bring me joy. I've been playing video games for most of my life, and have a good grasp on how much I need to personally play in order to make an assessment and formulate a review. There may be some who don't agree with this method, or won't consider what I present as a review, and no, I won't debate whether what I present is a review or not. But I find it important to be upfront from the jump, so people know what they're getting from me. There are so many schools of thought on just how much one has to play of a game in order to create a quote-unquote real review. Does playing enough mean getting a high score, finishing a main story, or getting to an endgame screen? Completing every side quest, collecting every single item, getting every trophy or achievement, or in the case of multiplayer, playing through every mode and everything each mode has to offer for a certain amount of time? With so many different viewpoints, I find you can't win. Luckily, there are enough reviewers out there that it's highly likely you'll come across one that works for you. Oh, and one quick aside. I also follow these philosophies when it comes to movies, TV shows, and other media and products as well. Here are some other things you can expect from me and my content. I have no schedule to releasing videos, or how many. Will I post only a few? Will it be weekly, monthly, yearly? I don't know. I just want to post when I have something to share, and have the time to create it, of course. YouTube lets us know successful channels produce videos regularly and often. This isn't one of those channels, so it may factor into a subscription decision. And those subscribers can be a perk for many, and I think it's cool some may find my channel worth following. It's not a goal of mine. I'm not a professional videographer. I don't plan to be. I hope my videos will come out the way I envision them. I want to produce content I'm proud of, and I do hope you enjoy them. Video length. Videos will be the length they need to be, no set format. I will also only speak on a topic as long as I feel the need to. Some may find it too brief, others too verbose, but at the end of the day, I gotta be me. I don't fancy myself a rambler, though I do sometimes do in conversation. I can't promise rambling won't happen, but I know it annoys me, so I'm going to try to avoid it as much as I can. Repeating things from time to time or from video to video? I can't promise it won't happen. Passion or interest will dictate that. But I absolutely won't pad my content to reach a certain runtime length. I dislike when people do that, and though some may like the extra moolah from additional generated ads, I feel it shows a lack of respect for their viewers when done for that purpose. Like, share, subscribe, comment, ring the bell, etc. These tools are an essential part of YouTube's functionality. I think most would agree. I think they're a great way to interact with one another. And these interactions can play a role on how videos are distributed and compensated. But it absolutely grates on my nerves when creators mention these points in every video, sometimes multiple times in a single video, verbally or graphically. I sometimes wonder how much time has been sucked away from me listening to this overly cliche rhetoric, repeated over and over again, no matter how mundane or creatively the balderdash is wedged into a video. And though some may say, hey, it only takes a few seconds of your time, I feel I might be surprised and depressed if it was ever added up to show just how much time it actually cost me in total. But don't get me wrong, I don't begrudge those who do, as YouTube has communicated that the act of asking can make a channel more successful. YouTube's ideals of success, of course. People may see results, and it may very well work, and some do share data suggesting that it does, but it's not for me. And since I don't like to sit through the spiel, I'm not going to put you through it either. People know what to do. Like something, hit like. Want to comment, comment. Fancy a channel, subscribe. I don't feel the need to remind anyone what to do, though it may appear that I just did. It's not the intent here, and I'm just stating these obvious scenarios to illustrate my point. And since these areas are not the focus of my channel, I'm not worried if people forget. I want to quickly share my views regarding opinions, as many things I've said so far reflect my opinion. Everyone has a right to their own opinion. I think that's about the most important thing there is to being an individual. Having said that, and this is very important when engaging with me, you have a right to your opinion. But you don't have a right to mine. That's not meant to sound harsh, I just want to be clear. We may not always agree on everything, and that should be okay. Respect concerning this goes a long way. One thing regarding opinions that should be understood when it comes to my content. Everything I talk about, unless I state it clearly as a fact, or it's fictional in nature, or it's part of a joke, is just my opinion. Having said that, I won't feel the need to point this out, an opinion, after every single sentence or thought. I don't feel anyone should have to justify or spell it out each time that what we are stating is an opinion. I think some of us do it because we've run into situations where we've unintentionally triggered someone by just simply saying something. I found that any topic, heck, everything that could ever be said will trigger someone. And let's talk about that. Everything that can ever be said will be offensive to someone. I found it's unavoidable. Even the most mundane and innocent of topics will be skewed. Words are often taken out of context, without the consideration of the intent behind them, and sometimes used back in partial form, or in paraphrase form, to harm. And that includes when intonation and inflection are ignored, or misinterpreted, from spoken word. I appreciate and champion everyone's right to have an opinion. I do not, however, prescribe to those who use their opinion unjustly or to bully. I want to give you a quick example of how a simple question, which on the surface doesn't seem offensive, can turn so. Let's say someone poses the question, "What is your favorite color?" One answers, "Mine is black." A person responds, "Yeah, I like black too. It reminds me of Halloween." Another replies, "I'm not really into black. I'm a red guy myself, but like what you like." But there are always those individuals who will take offense to someone's answer, or even the question itself. Here's some examples of that. "Black? Black's not even a color. Are you a moron?" Or, "Why even ask this question? It means absolutely nothing. Don't you have anything better to do, idiot?" A lot of us have experienced this directly, so you can imagine how more robust topics can garner even more unnecessary offense. One common nomenclature in internet speak that can be used to describe this type of backlash is, of course, trolling. Trolls. A moniker often synonymous with troublemakers, or even bullies. And where there's drama, trolls are often at the center of it, instigating or feeding at the trough. Now, trolling can be less egregious, of course, but is usually meant to annoy someone on some level, or harm at worst. I do think there are occasions where someone trolling is intending fun, but I feel if the receiving party isn't in on the joke at some point, it's a fail. There can also be a fine line between joking and trolling to cause distress, and it can be hard sometimes to tell the difference. Intention is key though, and timing and setting can be factors as well. And if the person reveals something as a joke, and is someone of reputable trust, then it's easier to determine an intended joke. But if the person professing something as a joke is known as dishonest or unprincipled, especially if they demonstrate a pattern of behavior that causes distress, then a troll can emerge. Still, it is ultimately up to the individual to decide if the behavior is harmful to them. That said, if the intention behind your words is candidly good, or if you're trying to bring laughter to people with an intended joke, while always keeping in mind that humor is subjective and that not every joke is a joke to everyone, then don't beat yourself up when someone reacts poorly. Please know that you cannot control others' feelings or reactions. Every individual is responsible for their own feelings and reactions. Therefore, don't just apologize to apologize. It almost never makes sense to apologize for good intentions, and apologies themselves lose their strength and meaning if you apologize for everything. Instead, empathize or sympathize if possible. Stay true to yourself while keeping other viewpoints in mind, and decide if a situation truly needs an apology, or even a further explanation or a rebuttal. Believe it or not, sometimes not reacting back, or simply leaving a conversation are the best courses of action, especially when dealing with someone unwilling to accept, or at the very least, try to understand your true intentions. If you do feel you intended harm, especially in heat-of-the-moment situations, or had a good feeling your actions might cause harm beforehand, and you do feel truly sorry, then an apology is more than apt in those situations. At the end of the day, it's difficult to predict every outcome of everything you do or say. But as you grow, push yourself to evolve the sometimes treacherous waters of your voice. Consider timing, setting, and situation. Due diligence can save you headaches. Be learned. And as the old adage says, think before you speak. Don't unnecessarily censor yourself when your aim is just and good, and always learn from your mistakes and strive for better. One important thing to also note, one doesn't have to be labeled a troll to cause harm. Some people just focus on negativity and go out of their way to find something wrong with everything. Ignoring or not engaging with said people is a great rule of thumb and can be very effective. Though personally, I do try to give grace at times, as I remember my own personal struggles with negativity. I found weighing the source against the words to be a useful tool. The way I decide what words I give power to, and my likelihood of engagement, is I assess who that person is to me. If they're a friend, family member, or significant other, their words can hold substantial weight. If they're an acquaintance or someone who I have interest in, their words can garner some attention. But if it's someone who I don't even know, for example, a random person, often behind an internet handle to represent them anonymously, or someone who's rightly earned my disfavor, then their words hold way less significance. To be clear, this in no way means I don't appreciate, consider, or value words from people I don't personally know. But if random individuals intend harm, or I perceive harm, I effort not to waste time or energy engaging with them. Sure, we're all human, and we all have triggers that can snap us out of our norm, but I strive not to waste time with this sort of engagement. And one important way one can lose engagement with me quickly is if a person resorts to blanket mislabeling or name-calling. Throwing out incorrect labels directed at an individual with no basis in fact, I feel, is the lowest form of communication. If you ever want to take a chance on losing credibility with what you're saying, simply name-call. And that includes arbitrarily calling someone a troll when it simply isn't true. Some other labels I've seen thrown around all the time, but not just limited to these, are hater and shill. Calling someone a hater just because they don't agree with you, or have something negative to say about something or someone you like, without proving with compelling evidence the alleged intended hate, or labeling someone a shill just because they simply like something a lot, support something a lot, or buy something a lot, without providing any specific facts with convincing conclusions proving an act of real shilling, just makes one sound unintelligent. And sure, one might defend the use of these words as simply slang, but what a lazy and apathetic stance to take. My advice: avoid name-calling or labeling altogether if you can, and just use facts. If you feel you have to use a label, use it very sparingly, if ever at all, and only as a punctuation to hard evidence, not just a feeling or opinion. And yes, as with most things, there are exceptions. Things like intended jokes are fine in most cases, and I guess if you really do want to end a conversation abruptly. Another big way one can lose engagement with me is coming off as, or being an, elitist. And though I use the term elitist, please note that my focus is really on elitism in general. And something also to take into account, though many bad behaviors I'll touch upon here can be attributed to elitist conduct, these practices aren't just limited to people who fall under an elitist label. Some are just prone to using any tactic to get people to yield to their way of thinking, or as a means to harm, or justify harm to others. I remember back in the day, I was fully engaged in the Nintendo versus Sega console wars. I was very guilty of being an elitist, a Sega snob if you will, in the worst sense. In the end, all it got me was missing out on some great Nintendo games, and more importantly, missing out on engaging with more people who were also passionate about my video game hobby. Elitists need to be right about everything they're taking a stance on, and act as if their caste should make decisions for all. Elitists revel in their ability to make others feel small, and make things they don't like feel less important or wrong. They love to push their own ideals as the only right answer or the only way, and tend to scorn options, even if more options have the potential to bring more people to the things they like and care about. They often like to speak for everyone, making blanket statements as fact without providing irrefutable evidence, and avoid using I statements like I feel or I believe to sidestep self-ownership of their declarations. I'd like to share a quick example of elitism using one of my favorite hobbies today, home arcades. Let's take an elitist who makes it clear they only have love and respect for original commercial-grade arcade machines, and who also seeks to put down anyone who purchases a modern, smaller form factor, economically designed replica arcade machine. The elitist comments of these smaller machines are just toys. They offer up differences between the two products, but do so in such an overwhelmingly biased manner, deliberately leaving out positive points of the opposing brand, unless followed up by a snide comment, and make it clear there is no argument to be had and no value to be found in a lesser product. The word toys in itself can be used positively, but the intention of the elitist by adding the word just before it means to belittle the product and even the people who like it. The word toys in this statement is the equivalent of name-calling just towards an object instead of a person. Elitists also love passive aggression because they know it's hard to prove any intended coercion or prejudice with a quick denial. Their tone and the words they choose, however, exposes them every time. Though please note, passive-aggressive behavior isn't just limited to what people say. But for this topic, I'll be focusing on the words. Look for statements that are hard or impossible to argue, slyly added into a discussion with the intent to get others to conform without opposition. For example, let's say a passive-aggressive person wants the people he's working with to do something in a certain way. Instead of just presenting his case, he adds in a statement that most, if not all, would have to agree with, all for the purpose of discouraging anyone from speaking out against his proposal. He may add in something like, "The customer should always come first," or "Let's make sure we're doing what's best for the team," or "Making things more efficient for the company should be the priority. No one wants to get stuck doing things just because that's the way we've always done them," or "It's always worked this way, so why fix something that's not broke? Why reinvent the wheel?" And the use of all-encompassing words, which imply that everyone feels, thinks, does, or acts a certain way, are often used as well. Look for the overuse of the word "we," especially in statements or in the form of questions like in these examples. "We all know everyone should play the game the same way, and whoever wants additional options should just go play something else." Or, "We buy this brand because we actually care about nostalgia." Or, "We all have something really cool, so there's no reason to complain. We can all agree everyone should be happy and focus on the positive." Or, "As true gamers, we don't want a difficult game to get an easy mode, do we?" Or, "We can all accept that," and then insert any said statement here. Some other examples of all-encompassing words that can be used in place of the word "we" are us, everyone, everybody, nobody, none, all, community, and people. But it must be prefaced that these words in themselves are not bad, and are often used in positive ways. But they are favorites for those trying to pressure and force their own agendas. It all comes down to how one uses and intends them. And the use of I statements I spoke of earlier, which I mentioned could be used positively to take ownership of one's words and beliefs, can also be used passive-aggressively in this manner as well. Here are some examples of that. "I actually care about playing arcade games. That's why I only play on commercial machines. It's the only way to play." Or, "I only buy this brand because their products are for people who place an importance on nostalgia." Or, "I do it this way because it's the correct way and the best way to do it." The passive aggressor deliberately uses these types of tactics to shut down arguments before they can be brought forward, to underhandedly coerce others to get on board with their conclusions, and to imply or suggest that believing anything else is just plain wrong, dismisses the best course of action, or in some cases, supports something harmful. Regardless of which shifty approach is taken, it is very important to call out passive-aggressive behavior when it happens, especially if you want the behavior to stop. Even though most of the time you'll hear denial from the offending party, every time you do call it out, it exposes the maneuver for what it is, and lets the person know they aren't fooling anyone, and that the ploy won't be tolerated. Exposing passive-aggressive conduct takes the power away from the act, and if done consistently, can force someone who relies on these tactics to seek out healthier ways to communicate. But again, with elitists, this could be an even more difficult challenge because of the need to always be right. But if you ever dare suggest the elitist always needs to be right, they'll be more than happy to tell you about that one time, or maybe 2 times, they admitted they were wrong, as if it proves a propensity to be objective. Elitists will also backpedal on their statements without admitting error, claiming, after opposition, that they didn't mean it that way, or it's just their opinion, or they're not being passive-aggressive. But again, their conveyance exposes them. Also look for elitists to use placation tactics, pretending to care about or listening to the opposition, then quickly destroy that goodwill, revealing it as disingenuous, usually in the form of a backhanded comment. Here's an example. Yes, I am truly happy for those who enjoy these new smaller machines, but I myself don't like baby toys, and I'll stick to the original adult models. It's irritating for sure, but I encourage you when dealing with an elitist personality to avoid calling them an elitist. Name-calling back will rarely help your position, and can in fact weaken it. My advice is to recognize the situation and leave when no other constructive or enjoyable banter can be had. Remember, an elitist stance isn't just to like what they like, but to also cause harm to anything or anyone they disagree with. This level of harm can vary, like a negligible, off-the-cuff statement, "they're just toys," or can be more egregious. No matter who it comes from, or in what form, when harm goes too far, thankfully, YouTube gives creators tools to deal with these situations. Bullies, harassers, spammers, dislike bombing, content theft, gang and sock account outbreaks, and anyone else who affects the plain happiness and well-being of the creator. And though not all means provided by YouTube are perfect, some even broken, I'm at least glad they recognize there are issues and work towards solutions. Now it's up to the individual to decide if something causes them distress or not. We're all different. One may not agree if a creator decides to remove a comment, not respond, disables likes and dislikes and/or comment sections on their videos, or even block someone. And a person's comment or action may not be seen by most as something harmful. But again, it's ultimately up to the creator to make that call, and they should have the means to do what's best for them within YouTube's guidelines and the law, of course. And if you yourself decide to use one of these tools, do not let someone else shame you for doing so. Who are they? And better yet, who is this collective of individuals making up rules against it? The plain and simple fact is, the platform, YouTube itself, have put these features in place for a reason. So don't let a person or group of people dictate your actions. Let those who oppose have their opinion and focus on you. However, and I feel I must stress this point again to be clear, using these features and options correctly within YouTube's guidelines and the law. Proper use is key. Do I think creators should provide an explanation after the fact, or give warnings to people before taking action? I don't. Sure, it would be a nice and courteous gesture, but no one is under any obligation to do so, at least as far as I could find. And by no means let someone else dictate that you must. I myself might give a warning or an explanation, depending on the situation, but it's not owed, nor should it be expected. Especially if someone is just plain rude or malicious. Who wants to be courteous of that? And I want to make this stance clear. I do not think in any way, shape, or form, that removing a comment or even blocking or banning someone is censorship. It's just not. At least not here in the good old USA. There are plenty of other avenues, on YouTube and outside of YouTube, for people to speak. We have the whole internet, or outside that avenue if you prefer. Get banned somewhere, or have one of your comments removed? Strike up your voice somewhere else. Easy. And I found out a while ago that YouTube has an algorithm or program that can remove comments immediately or soon after you post them. It's supposed to sniff out possible spam or violations to its rule set and automatically remove the comment. Doing some additional research, I found that some of these comments can be moved to a creator's spam folder for them to evaluate and approve individually. It should be noted, though, that there is a setting that allows a creator to hold comments from public view until they evaluate them and allow them to post. I bring this up because I started noticing more and more of my comments, especially the longer ones, being removed soon after I posted them, sometimes within seconds, from videos of creators I have good standing with. I reached out to 2 of them, and they let me know they also noticed this happening and didn't like it, but they unfortunately had no control over it. One even checked their spam holding comment folder for me and didn't see any of my comments there, so nothing to restore. One of them provided me information that swear words, links to other sites, and things of that nature seemed to trigger it most. One even saw me trying to send the same comment several times, and YouTube kept automatically removing it. Since I don't make it a point to use swear words in my comments, and stopped including links to other sites in my comments, I can only imagine long comment length is what triggers it most in my case, and possibly the multiple paragraph format I use. Still, even times where I only type a sentence or 2 can trigger it. It's frustrating, but at the end of the day, it is YouTube's site, and they should have the right to run it the way they see fit. Plus, could you imagine how much money it would cost them to hire enough people to police every comment on the site? These measures may be their best alternative. My best advice is to take this into consideration if you ever see one of your comments instantly removed from a video. Also consider that the creator may have YouTube's comment evaluation setting enabled. Regardless if a creator chooses to remove a comment, properly utilize other features within YouTube's guidelines, or follow other appropriate legal means, I do not see them as weak for doing so, especially if it helps keep them sane and well. I may not always agree with their decision, those who choose to reveal it, and I don't assume a reason for those who choose not to disclose it. But I want to champion everyone's right to be happy, as long as it doesn't harm anyone else. And yes, no one definition fits all when it comes to the topic of harm, and reinterpretations will always exist as social mores change. Will I ever act on things I feel are harmful to me? Sure, if I feel the need to. And there are more reasons one might take action, like removing comments or even entire comment sections. Things like bots spamming myriads of advertisements, or links that take an audience to a malicious site. That's why I make it a point not to make assumptions regarding creators employing these types of actions. I do not assume they're afraid of criticism or afraid of negativity or trying to stymie a conversation, even if that may be the case. I accept that people have their reasons, which may not have anything to do with avoidance, fear, or even spite, and I encourage you to avoid such assumptions as well, or attempts to drive narratives with unconfirmed or false conclusions based upon general feelings, guesses, or opinions. In fact, let's take this video for example. As this is simply my introduction to my channel, I don't require any comments, nor do I have any interest in likes or dislike ratios. It's simply an informational piece which I require no feedback, so none enabled. For my other videos, most of them I suspect, I plan to have them open to comment and likes and dislikes enabled, as I feel they would benefit from engagement. Having said that, here's a key to happiness I'd like to share with you. Not everything needs to boil down to ones and zeros. Your existence and worth are more than the sum of how many thumbs ups and thumbs downs you have, video view counts, or how many numbers you've accumulated on a subscriber or friends list. You are more than the machine tells you you are, and don't base your entire value on what others think or say about you, especially from anonymous commenters. I'd now like to touch upon my communication habits and my thoughts regarding comments on my content. I first want to say, I may not reply to, respond to, or read all comments on my videos, maybe not at all sometimes. This also applies to other communiques like direct messaging, emails, and the like. I don't want anyone to take offense to that. Offense is not intended. I also don't want to put off the vibe that I don't enjoy a good conversation though. I love talking with people, but I pride myself in being upfront and want to make things known from the start so people know what to expect from me. Please also don't assume if I haven't responded to a comment that it is somehow not important or that I'm trying to ignore it. We all spend time differently, and each of us has a finite amount of it. Individually, each person needs to make a decision on how to best spend theirs. I would love to have an infinite amount of time, so much that I could engage with everyone that I wanted to, while also getting to all the other things important to me. But that's an unrealistic wish. Having said that, I will make it a strong point not to request comments or pose direct questions in the videos I make or in their associated text. YouTube, of course, encourages creators to request comments or pose questions encouraging comments in their videos to garner more engagement. I think the idea is great if the actual intention is to engage with people and follow through. But if the words are said just to get more numbers added to the machine without actual human engagement, it's unscrupulous. I think there are some people out there that just ask for comments as the thing to do, without ever intending to respond or even read them. They don't reveal this to their audience, and I think that's dishonest. If you are a person who practices this, I implore you to stop. Saying something just to say it is deceitful if you act the opposite. Be better than that. Remember, as action does, inaction also speaks louder than words. I myself don't expect every comment I leave to get a response. But if someone continually asks for comment engagement and doesn't ever engage back, I'll stop leaving comments. With that, I'd like to share some of my thoughts on commenting in general. First and foremost, be honest with what you say. Not just on YouTube, but through all your travels in life. It can take a lot to garner someone's trust, and honesty is an essential key to that. Where I think most people trip up is feeling they have to answer every question posed to them. Here's a spoiler: you don't. In addition, some things are just no one else's business, and you shouldn't feel like you have to answer or say something untrue just to appease someone else, even upon the threat of guilt assumption. You know, those times where people will say something to the effect of, if they weren't guilty, they'd just answer, or it must be the case because they aren't saying anything, or if you have nothing to hide, then why not just answer the question? No matter how much someone may goad you to say something, remember, you have the power to decide to get to hear what you have to say, whether that be to one person, a few people, the world, or to no one at all. If you do decide to say something, choose to make it the truth. Unless, of course, what you're saying is something in jest and you plan to reveal it as so for those who don't get it. I think we've also all had situations where we felt we had to come up with a false excuse to appease someone who reacted negatively to the truth. For example, you wanted to hang out with your buddies after work, and you let your girlfriend know, who said it was fine. But when you got home afterwards, she either gave you the cold shoulder, acted sad and wouldn't tell you right away that it hurt her feelings, or she gave you hell for it. She lied to you. So the next time you wanted to hang out with your buddies after work, you instead told her you had to work late, then hung out with your buddies instead. You lied to her. Or maybe someone asked you to do something you weren't interested in, or interested in at the time, and you were worried about hurting their feelings if you just declined. Or you knew that person wouldn't take a simple no for an answer, so you made something up, maybe prefacing it as something you couldn't get out of, just so they'd accept your position. Using false excuses can seem effective, and even an acceptable way to keep the peace, but there's no way to mask it. It's still dishonest. And using dishonest tactics of any kind are a bad habit to get into, because it makes it easier to associate lies with favorable results, thus making it easier to justify continual lying. Continual lying can then turn into a normal way to communicate, where you may not even realize you're doing it, and that in turn can make it harder to recognize when something really is the truth or not. You may even find yourself in situations where you spin different versions of a story to 2 or more people and eventually get caught in a lie when everyone ends up in the same room together and the topic comes up. Spin enough tales and you may start to forget who you told what to. To avoid any situations like these, my advice is to work with the people you interact with and cultivate better ways to communicate truthfully. Not to just accept things or be okay with things just because they are the truth, mind you, but to appreciate the truth itself and then work towards healthy ways to approach and reconcile situations. Trust and integrity can take a long time to substantially earn, but only a moment to lose. I'd like to share some helpful ways one can promote honesty. To strengthen your position on any matter, utilize facts. Opinions are great, as are feelings, but if you're trying to prove or convey something as true, then facts, especially if you can provide quantifiable data or accurate examples to back it up, is the way to go. And I can't stress this enough. Absolutely avoid using the term "my truth" when trying to prove something as reality. Using this phrase may seem like a good idea, especially when backed into a corner, giving you a sense that no one can contradict your argument, but it will instead have the opposite effect. Not only killing your current stance, but also harming your overall credibility on other things. You may want everyone to believe that the sky is plaid and filled with flying, singing green pugs and claim it as your truth, but to the rest living in the real world can perceive you as disillusioned, or worst case scenario, a liar. And though some may wish to insert mental health, other disorders, overactive imaginations, or substance influence into the equation, what I'm speaking on here is quantifiable and unequivocal reality, and not inhibited or false perception. Don't get me wrong, I believe people should have the right to believe what they want, if it doesn't cause harm to others, of course. But using my truth to skirt the truth just wastes any constructive conversation. An appropriate phrase to use in place of my truth would be my feelings. And although the information attached to this saying may still be false, the overall portrayal is more accurate. And also avoid using my truth's second cousin, the word assume. People use the word assume to avoid blame to a negative outcome, but in reality, they're taking all the fault. They often don't realize assuming still makes them accountable for what they believed, said, or done. So simply put, avoid using the phrase my truth and any form of the word assume when conveying your point. Avoid saying things like, to be honest, honestly, in my honest opinion, if I'm being completely honest, and other wording similar to that before presenting something. These phrases not only serve to question things you've said in the past where you didn't preface honesty first, but more importantly, they can also reveal to others that you don't always see yourself as a genuine or honest person. If you practice being honest every time you speak, there is no need to announce it beforehand. And that goes equally for similar phrases using the word truth and its like. Avoid saying things like, to tell you the truth, and truthfully, or antonym word phrases like, I'm not gonna lie, and its many iterations. Habits can be hard to break, but this is one well worth breaking. Avoid saying the words I can't or it's like in conversation. Some like examples are I need or I have to, unless you can unequivocally prove it. It can be a little trickier than one might think, expressing these sayings in a truthful way. Someone may tell you they can't work a lower paying job because it doesn't pay all their bills, but in reality, they could actually work a lower paying job, regardless of their bills, or maybe even a combination of several lower paying jobs, but may choose not to because they have a certain lifestyle they want to maintain or a single agreeable salary they want to earn. The simple act of replacing the words I can't with something like I won't work a lower paying job because it won't pay all my bills, would instead convey true representation. Here's another quick example. A person says, I can't get together with you this afternoon because I have to babysit my younger brother. Mom's making me. This falsely suggests the person doesn't have a choice, but of course here, we know they do, even though taking another course may have undesirable consequences. If they want to convey their situation in an accurate manner, they might say something like, I'm not going to get together with you today because I agreed to watch my younger brother. I told my mom I would, and I'm going to keep my word. Now, they didn't have to add the last part about keeping their word, but if the intent is true, and it should be if one says it, then something like that can further strengthen one's position nobly, making it easier for another party to accept. Using deflective approaches by means of words like I can't, I have to, or I need to, are often done to avoid taking onus of one's decisions, or to give off the illusion that one doesn't have a choice, or to ease someone else's feelings. But choosing accuracy to present the truth, like instead saying, I choose not to, or I'm not going to, or like in the first example, I won't, emphatically though, without the addition of something like be able to added after it, displays a full honest intent and a responsibility for one's accord. And not to leave anyone hanging, here are some examples using I can't and I need to in accurate and provable ways. I can't physically run around the entire world in 2.5 seconds flat. And, in order to stay alive, I need to have air to breathe. Think hard and use caution before uttering the phrase I don't care or the like. Don't use the phrase if you plan to continue engagement with the associated topic because you just claimed that it didn't concern you. If you really do mean I don't care, then let your actions speak truthfully then and there and drop the subject. If you continue on with it or keep bringing it up in the future, then your actions only serve to prove that you actually do care and that your statement of non-interest was false. Take pride to mean and act what you say. I hope these tips on ways to promote honesty serve you well. Presenting oneself with candor might not always be easy, but it is the right thing to do. Something else I find really important when commenting is, objectiveness and kindness goes a long way. You can be critical about something or someone without being a jerk. You can be angry at something you just watched, heard, or experienced, but still be constructive in your response. Facts and well thought out opinions over name calling, or simply putting something down for the sake of it, is a great rule of thumb. I suggest stating something positive, if possible, before hashing out the negative. And don't undersell the use of a kind word, because regardless of the outcome, putting forth positive energy is a worthwhile endeavor. And one thing I think should be taken into account before commenting is that YouTubers are real people, as are commenters who aren't bots as well. They have real feelings just like anyone else. Consider this. If you were physically and face-to-face in the same room with a YouTuber or fellow commenter, would you say what you just typed in a comment section, chat, etc. to their face? It's easy at first to think one might, especially when emotions are running high. But chances are, when put in a real live situation, most probably wouldn't. And if you wouldn't, then don't type or say it. This concept can equally apply to phone conversations and in-game voice chats as well. It's easy to say things, especially awful things, from an anonymous position. But a real gut check to say something to someone's face without hiding behind anything. And something also to consider. Sometimes the wisest person in the room is the one who isn't saying anything. It can also be easy to become too familiar with a YouTube personality because they can seem very approachable in their videos. You may even feel you can say the same things to them as you would a close friend or someone you've known outside the internet for years. But keep in mind that someone who's known you for a long time has a stronger context behind your words than a YouTuber you may interact with from time to time. Remember, everyone has boundaries, and just because you have a great rapport with a YouTuber online doesn't mean you really know who they are as a person. And speaking about a boundary that should never be crossed, do not, and I repeat, do not try to meet up with a YouTuber or any person of interest at a place of residence, private property, their home, or at their workplace without their express permission, period. That goes double for me, as I wouldn't hesitate to get the law involved. I hate to come off as harsh, but this is something of absolute importance and requires outright clarity and bluntness. Unless someone directly invites you to do so, with no sarcasm involved, and with 100% confirmation that all parties are who they say they are, this is never okay. I'd also recommend not just coming up to a YouTuber if you see them on the street, a restaurant, an airport, or anywhere in public, unless that YouTuber has made it clear that it's okay or has invited you to do so. Sure, public places are public places, but choose to place more importance on a person's privacy. And not just this type of privacy, but all types of privacy. With big corporations and other nefarious entities continually trying to chip away at the last vestiges of our privacy, let's do our small part as decent human beings not to participate in that. I suggest reaching out to a YouTuber via YouTube or one of their other open social media avenues first to ask and get confirmation regarding public place interactions and other areas of interest, getting their consent before acting. And if you don't get a response, take the high road approach and treat it as something off limits. When it comes to privacy and people's personal boundaries, I recommend not approaching the situation as a treat others how you'd like to be treated, but instead, treat others how they'd like to be treated. Now, when it comes to my opinions and expressing views towards bigger entities, such as those in power, companies, brands, products, services, and the like, I take a slightly different stance when it comes to commenting. I don't have much problem hearing or leaving harsher criticism towards these larger parties or people in power, as these entities can have a much bigger negative impact on more people. Are there still lines? Sure. Objectiveness can better strengthen one's points. But I'm not opposed to letting a company have it if they've shown they don't care, cause harm, outright lie, or more importantly, if a harsher approach can enact positive change. The old adage still stands though, think before one speaks. Before I go into my next topic, I want to touch on one last important thing regarding comments, and that's web links. Always think before you follow that link. Cheesy saying? Maybe. But with so many malicious people and entities out there looking to harm you with internet links, I strongly suggest taking a pause before committing to a click. Me personally, I prefer not to receive links. If you want me to see something on YouTube, instead of sending me a direct link to the video, instead, leave me the exact title of the video and the name of the YouTube channel as well, and I'll search for it. If you want to show me something outside of YouTube, like a product or something else, leave me the name of the site, not the HTML website link, and the name of what I need to search for on that site, I'll get on Google and do the legwork. As for links I myself provide in comments and text sections on YouTube, they will only link to places on YouTube, period. I used to provide safe outside of YouTube links in the past with good intention, but no longer. I want to keep everyone safe. If I ever want to share something outside of YouTube, I'll describe where you can search for it. Plus, it should be known that YouTube frowns upon links that take people away from their site, so there's that too. This is also a good way to spot if someone tries to impersonate me or my channel as well. If you see a comment or direct message on YouTube providing a link that takes you away from YouTube, or asks you to use another app, or log into another site, or provides an email address to contact, or a number to call or text, it's not me. I only provide an email or phone number to those I personally know or trust, and I would never just paste that info into a comment. Also very important, I don't do giveaways or have any types of contests or the like. My main purposes on YouTube are to post and watch videos, and on occasion conversate. If someone says you've won something, or wants you to participate in something that costs you money, identity info, or the like, it's not me. I've seen impersonation scams run so many times, scammers posing as YouTubers you trust, and even creating channels or accounts that look like they can come from your favorite YouTuber, celebrity, or even someone you know. Please be careful. Malicious people will continually try to come up with new ways to harm you, like even providing attachments begging to be open. No clicky, take pause, stay vigilant. We should also all be aware that link locations are not guaranteed permanent. Video availability fluctuates all the time. So if you see a link I've left and it's no longer valid, please don't stress. I plan to leave information next to the link so you can search an alternative. And yes, you can let me know if a link I posted is no longer valid. If I have time, I may fix it. But please keep in mind what I said before about my communication habits in order to mitigate expectations. Now to a few other topics of interest. First, covering topics in general. Everyone has their own way of presenting things and choosing what they want to focus on in a video. It's a fool's errand to think that anyone can cover every piece of information or every angle imaginable about any one topic, especially in a single video. Though doing one's due diligence as a creator is important, and making a good faith effort to know the topic and be prepared, while remaining authentic and honest, avoiding intentional, unscrupulous bias, eliminating conscious intent to leave out key details important to the discussion, performing simple Google searches or search engine of your choice to find answers instead of stating that you aren't sure or don't know in the video itself, some exceptions to live streaming on the fly, of course, and avoid putting out content too soon just to be the first, especially when dealing with significant topics that have the ability to impact someone or something negatively, unjustly, does play a major role. Creators who observe these aforementioned areas shouldn't beat themselves up or think they're wrong just because someone points out something they missed or they didn't cover. Some YouTubers make videos just as a hobby and may have limited time and resources, some even creating without monetizing their efforts. This isn't an excuse for sloppy legwork, but it should be considered. My best advice: strive to put best foot forward, and above all, enjoy what you do. And just a quick aside, so some don't think me daft, I'm fully aware that these points do not apply to all videos, as some are not driven this way and are out of scope of this matter. Creators may also assert their own stances and tones when presenting things. There may be times you feel some are too harsh, some are too soft, some are too on the fence, or some hold totally opposite views from your own. With so many voices on YouTube, you're bound to find one or more that speaks to you. I must say though, I found these areas trigger some of the harshest responses I've seen on the platform. I personally train myself to just turn off a video if I feel triggered. I also find utilizing the dislike button helps as well, even though YouTube's algorithm treats it as a positive engagement. Unsubscribing from or not subscribing to a channel has more impact, and that's always an option. What I tend to steer away from in these circumstances is leaving any sort of a comment that I can't at least add something constructive to. I'm one who reads comments I write over a couple times before hitting the comment button. If I find there's nothing but spite, or there's no real value to add, intended joking aside of course, then I don't commit to sending the comment. Am I perfect? No. But here's some advice that might help your responses be more fruitful. If you don't like a creator's stance on a topic, or their tone presenting it, instead of telling them what to do, or being outright derogatory, share your approach without referencing back to the creator's approach. In addition, since comments are in text format, and one can't see or hear your demeanor, though use of emojis can help with that, responses in the form of questions, non-passive aggressive of course, instead of straight statements that can come off as demands or commands, can give you a greater chance of opening a dialogue rather than building walls and pulling out tanks. Also avoid typing your whole comment in all caps. That almost never comes off well. For creators who are looking for ways to hone their craft, my best advice is to consider constructive comments regardless of tone. Never feel like you have to completely change who you are to placate the masses, but also don't forget to sift through advice from time to time. Nuggets of wisdom can be gleaned even from the harshest of criticism. Having said all that, however, there is an additional wrinkle to consider if you do decide to monetize. If people are paying you to do what you do, YouTube, advertisers, companies, or your viewers themselves, no matter how you choose to frame it, there is a beholden aspect. That level varies, but just know that it is an important factor. And to that, let me touch on my thoughts regarding monetization and my channel. As of the making of this video, I don't have plans to monetize this channel. I don't know if I ever will, but right now that doesn't interest me. First and foremost, I'd like to avoid having people sit through advertisements to view my stuff. Yes, YouTube can and will sometimes add advertisements to any video, regardless, but I'd rather not compound that. And if YouTube does decide to add advertisements to any of my videos, just know that I, myself, do not endorse what the advertisement is peddling. Unless I directly endorse something in a video I've created, or directly provide endorsement via text I type myself, then please know that I have no real control over what YouTube adds to one of my videos, so no endorsement from me. That's not saying I begrudge YouTube for doing what they need to do. It's their site, and they have every right to run it the way they see fit. I just want to be clear and transparent on my stance and intentions. I'm also not looking at the Patreons or other third-party monetization avenues either. I don't begrudge those who use these, or YouTube's monetization options, scrupulously of course, without the air into begging territory, as they are a great way to make a little extra money, or even a good living. I try to avoid saying never, and I'm not saying my content isn't worthy of revenue, but it's just not a focus at this time. Oh, and if you really want to get me disinterested in a video, awkwardly or otherwise, squeeze a sponsorship plug into it, something that has nothing to do directly with the main topic of the video. Yes, companies partnered with may stipulate inserting these somewhere into the meat of a video, and sure, these contracts can be lucrative, but I feel they take away from the artistic or entertainment value of the video. Sometimes I'll even stop watching the video at that point instead of trying to find a place in the timeline to skip the annoyance. Do you, of course, but my advice, if possible, is to put that stuff at the very end of the video, after your intended video topic, the main non-ad content, has concluded, so I can enjoy your actual video without the sponsored speed bump. And if you're really that enamored by the product, why not just make a completely separate video about just that product? Yes, maybe that's not in the terms of the sponsorship or the affiliation, but if you stand behind what you endorse, I suggest going that route instead if you can. But if you're doing a sponsorship just for the money, a hustle, without any real interest, not just some interest, in the thing you're sponsoring, then I feel it's disingenuous. Remember, you're asking people to buy into something based upon your recommendation and reputation, sometimes involving them spending their hard-earned money. I encourage anyone thinking about doing a sponsored video to do some self-reflection first, and then consider doing the following. Before putting out your first sponsored video, consider your entreated subscribers. If you request people subscribe to your channel, reach out to them and ask them if they'd be interested in seeing endorsed products and services you're excited about show up in your videos. What better way to show respect for their time and your appreciation for them following your content? Let them know what types of products and services you're thinking about and in a way you plan to present them so they can give you the best feedback. Use their consensus and direction ideas to guide your decision. Be conscious not to lead their responses by passive-aggressive means, excuses, or other attempts to make them feel bad if they aren't receptive to the idea. Do not use the excuse that sponsorships allow one to make content or continue making content. That shows a true lack of candor, unless somehow you no longer have access to equipment and/or services with the ability to make and share videos. Making less content or some changes to the content are always options. And it should be noted, some of the most creative folks out there find a way to make magic using very little. If sponsorships or the other monetization avenues I spoke about before are the only way you feel you can keep making videos, or if you see YouTube as your job and find you can't make enough money to pay the bills without making inattentive, indifferent, or shady deals, or even dipping into virtual panhandling, and heaven forbid, doing so by playing on others' emotions and sympathy, then it might be time to consider another vocation or profession. Next, ask yourself if you'd sit down with any of your loved ones, the people closest to you, the ones who trust you, and recommend something like this to them. Is it something they'd really need, or would it benefit them in a positive way? Do you yourself completely trust the product or service and the company behind it? Have you looked into the company's history? Have you researched the product itself, beyond your tryout and testing? Do you believe both the company and product are reputable, quality, and safe? Are you willing to reveal any inequities you find if you performed your due diligence here? Were you provided the product or service for free? And have you made that transparent in your pitch? Do you continue to receive it for free for products and services that require continued payments or subscriptions? And have you made that clear to your audience, knowing if they participate, they'll have to continually pay for it? Would you purchase the product if you weren't offered it for free? Have you purchased the product? Do you actively use the product or service? Not just trying it once, unless it's a one-time use thing, of course, or as a passive thing, but use it as much as the sales pitch suggests? And finally, since you are the endorser, ask yourself this important question. Though having both is ideal, if you're made to choose only one, what's more important to you? Your integrity or your wallet? Remember, integrity, or lack thereof, follows you long after the money is gone. Now to a favorite topic of mine, pronunciations. A wise song once sang, and I paraphrase, I say tomato, you say tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. In other words, if we both understand each other, let's just accept the way each of us speaks and move on to better things. I get the want to help someone pronounce something in a way you yourself understand is correct or is factually correct. And I'm not saying you need to eliminate this practice, especially to assist those seeking help with pronunciation, or at times where you need clarification when unclear of what someone just said, or to help prevent a future embarrassing faux pas. A favorite faux pas example of mine is when the word happiness is spoken with certain accents, and it can sound like a person said, a penis. At the end of the day, as long as we both understand each other, I think we'll be fine. Everybody has their own dialect, accents, preferences, and individual life experiences. Just know when it comes to me, whether correct or incorrect, or how a word is originally intendedly pronounced, whether dictionary word, name of a company, or whatnot, let me be frank. The way I speak is the way I speak. I do like pronouncing words as correctly as possible, and do make corrections now and then. But perfection is a fickle mistress. I don't ever see myself getting to that level, nor do I need it personally. Heck, sometimes I get used to saying something in a certain way for so long that even if it's incorrect to some, I may never change the way I say it. I've even been known to mispronounce words on purpose, sometimes to joke around. You, of course, are free to comment on my pronunciations, but I can tell you, it might not be the best use of your time. Constructive is always preferred, but don't assume I'll take action to change it, and I may not respond at all. If I do respond, I may just link back to this video. I can tell you, the very sparing times I comment on pronunciations, not often mind you, I'd like to provide you a method I use as I find it's good advice. I do so in an observative way, with deliberate conscience to leave out any confrontational speak. I don't tell the person they're pronouncing it wrong or how it's supposed to be pronounced. I instead let them know that it's an interesting way to hear the word, and then simply offer the way I pronounce it. Here's an example. That's an interesting pronunciation. I pronounce it tomato. This way, I'm not telling them to change the way they say it, and merely offer the way I do. If you genuinely want to spark a conversation about pronunciation, then I'd leave out the way you pronounce the word initially, and simply comment that it's an interesting way to hear the word. This leaves the door open for the person to ask you how you pronounce the word. In the end, when it comes to me and my material at least, I wouldn't spend your precious time pointing out pronunciations. I have yet to meet an individual who pronounces every word correctly in every circumstance and in every audience. If you are that person, pat yourself on the back and maybe don't show off so much. Let's briefly talk about automatic closed caption and subtitle systems, as YouTube offers the option. I think these features are fantastic because they allow the hearing impaired to enjoy content and also assist those in situations where sound isn't available or practical to see what is said. But please keep in mind that YouTube's automatic closed captioning system, as well as many other automated systems like this, often run off machine learning algorithms and aren't always accurate. I bring this up because the machine can misquote, and I want to avoid unnecessary offense or confusion due to translations out of my control. I have considered subtitling my own videos and may do so in the future, but for now, please use caution when utilizing automatic captioning systems like this. I'm so glad we have them, but keep in mind, they aren't perfect. As I near the end of this video, I'd like to leave you with some valuable adages to travel by. First and foremost, be a good human being. Live honest, full stop. Actions with principled intent, matching words, full stop. Celebrate freedom, while also recognizing that some issues are bigger than just you. Consider the communities, groups, and others you live amongst and who you benefit from. Don't tout self-freedom blindly, especially if it has the potential to do harm to others. Don't be afraid to admit your mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Take onus when you do wrong and effort to make right. Forgiveness will free you. Making a point not to forget will strengthen your acuity. Forgiveness doesn't need to involve amicability, but will accomplish freedom from self-imposed hurt. Endeavor to eliminate stereotyping. Believe me, an individual's real story is much more interesting than a misconception. Stand up for and stand with those who are bullied and harassed. Speak up when you see something. A silent bystander only encourages the negative conduct. Be a champion for those who feel powerless against this kind of behavior. And if you are, or were, the bullied, don't allow yourself to become the bully. If the tactics used against you were unpleasant, then don't use those same or similar tactics on someone else. Relying on unprincipled behaviors can seem easier and may even appear justifiable, or in the worst cases, dismissed as not the same when the end goal is so important. But as cliche as this may sound, two wrongs don't make a right. Take the time to remember how you felt when you were bullied, and don't let that hurt be your guide when planning to confront an obstacle. Seek healthy and constructive ways to achieve your objectives and lift yourself above the level of your persecutors, refusing to become the same thing that harmed you. Avoid forcing others to conform to new ways of thinking or conducting themselves differently based upon your personal preferences or social societal or perceived social societal changes. Different belief systems don't always mean or intend harm. Understand that some people may have grown up in different times or lived different circumstances, and connotations during those times may have served valuable or satisfactory purposes, even so today, that you don't immediately see or understand, and aren't just bad or wrong because they contrast your norms or current societal norms. That's not to defend or say that all norms or beliefs are just, or shouldn't be scrutinized, or in some cases, protested or shunned. But also be aware and take into consideration that someone who follows a perceived objectionable belief may not see it in a way you assume, and also may comprehend and follow it differently than someone else who professes that same ideal or belief. Also be willing to look in the mirror yourself and consider that your ways may not always be right, or at the very least, not right for all. Lead with comprehension and seek context first. Express your thoughts and feelings about behaviors, beliefs, and things you're not comfortable with. But instead of dictating terms, consider an open discussion and look for common ground when consensus can't be achieved. You never have to be okay with or accept another person's behavior or beliefs. But if real diversity and inclusion is important to you, know that it's not a one-way street. Embrace diversity and inclusion without hypocrisy. Seek to include those who are different from yourself without the fear of or sacrificing your own beliefs and values. Inclusion doesn't mean categorical, and meaningful inclusion isn't always possible, nor is it always successful. But at least keep the door open. Seek in what capacity people from all walks of life can be included, and to what degree. Employ the power to remove yourself from things you don't like, rather than commanding others to stop, excluding harmful situations, of course. It is very wise to understand, and ultimately to accept, that not everything is created, tailored, or meant just for you. Many of us have heard the saying, if you don't like something, don't listen to it or don't watch it. Respect that some may enjoy things you may not, and take the initiative to walk away versus imposing your own customs. That's not to say one can't express their own opinion. Having a voice is very important, but it is astute to know the line between sharing a view and demanding to cease. Be ever vigilant and reject indoctrination attempts into false made popular axioms and ideologies. Just because many voices may back something, or a majority of, or perceived majority of, views have changed, doesn't now just make it gospel, no matter how many times the messaging is repeated. Beware of political and pop culture propaganda, subtly or blatantly inserted into all manner of medium with well-calculated precision in order to lead you away from venerable morality and veraciousness. Internally and/or externally, bring these attempts into the light, exposing and dismissing these agendas for what they are. Let the real be your guide, and don't be afraid to stand with the truth. Suggest improvements and solutions to negative things and situations over just flat complaints. Surround yourself with positive people and embrace and put forth that same behavior. Also seek to heal those who need a bit of help in that area. Trust and respect are worth earning and shouldn't just be given lightly. Attempts to erase the past only beg to see its reoccurrence. Recognize, scrutinize, and reject corporate manipulation which falsely frames you at the center of the universe with its dishonest ideology that fame is the only key to happiness. These calculating institutions fabricate unrealistic expectations that everyone needs to obtain millions and millions of followers in order to be valued and valid, all while knowing that no number will ever be high enough to satisfy. Their dogma is designed to keep you self-important and reduce your compassion for others so you can continue to feed their machine and one's ego. This is seen clearly with continuous messaging that everyone needs to establish their own brand, emphasizing a corporate need to convert everyone into a simple commodity. Please understand, this is not to say people shouldn't reach for that brass ring. Reach for your dreams, but be aware of the constant coercion attempting to define those dreams for you. Self-renowned fame isn't the true path to admiration and love. Those bonds are formed by doing right and putting quality time into actual people and the ones closest to you. And fame, of course, can come from that and be a force for good. But just be aware that companies and businesses that peddle past the fame are fully aware of how rare it is to obtain the concept they're selling, and falsely promote it as simple for everyone in order to convert minds and open wallets. Be cognizant of corporate and societal preconditioning to covet self-fame above all else. Allow yourself to not have an opinion on everything. Just because you choose to not have an opinion on something doesn't mean that you don't care about things. And if you do have an opinion on something, never feel pressured to share it if it doesn't feel right to you. Confidence over arrogance, and the intelligence to recognize the difference. Reason over revenge. Consideration over cancellation. Have fun, moreover then, get good. Intention always over simply words. Seek to comprehend the meaning behind what someone says and consider all factors relevant to each circumstance in order to gather full context and achieve accurate understanding. Don't be afraid to ask questions to get clarification. Always keep in mind that there is more than just one side to a story. It's easy to be supportive to someone you know, someone you're interested in, or someone in distress. But keep in mind, you're only getting their perspective. Seek all the information, and know that a situation may be different than what it first appears. Avoid passing premature judgments or instantly reacting with assumptions in tow to things that you see, hear, or read about. Investigate. Seek the whole truth, then respond based upon all the facts. When referencing material to build up or reinforce one's viewpoints, make sure what you think you heard or read is actually what was said. And if unsure what was meant, take the time to make necessary inquiries to achieve accurate comprehension before citing. Avoid misquoting or misparaphrasing, and never participate in the conscious attempt to skew or manipulate meanings in order to inaccurately represent the original's connotation. Going down this misleading path will only serve to ruin your position and expose any ulterior agenda when the truth comes out. You may also find yourself at the end of this common phrase: "Stop putting words in my mouth," delivered straight from the source of your misrepresentation. Now, misinterpretations without malicious intent happen. No one is infallible. But doing small proactive things to decrease one's chances of it occurring not only help to avoid a future embarrassment, but also shows respect for the sources utilized. Things like making an effort to eliminate distractions when taking in information. Even the simple act of turning off a smartphone can help, or employing active listening techniques to fully vest in what is said. Referencing material is a great tool, and one that should be used carefully, wisely, and with accuracy at its core. Strive to know and understand what humor is, and learn to accept the intention behind humor, to make people laugh. Recognize that every joke is not meant for you, and that you may take offense to some. Choose to understand that offense isn't intended with a true intended joke, and avoid such comedic avenues in the future without retaliating against the person telling the joke. Also realize that jokes don't always land, and there isn't a joke out there to fit all. Believe it or not, even the classic "chicken crosses the road" joke can be offensive to some. Know that there are beneficial ways to let someone know a joke isn't funny without canceling the comic. Take the time to identify your core values, things that truly make you you, and hold the right to only adjust them based upon your feelings alone. Then take stock of your secondary conventions, the things that also make up who you are, but aren't as crucial to your identity, things you feel comfortable changing or altering for others when situations arise. For example, you may be very active in your religion and want people to respect that as one of your core values if they plan to be in your life. But you also like to tell a crass story from time to time, a secondary convention of yours, but you're more than willing to refrain from telling such stories when a grandparent is around so as not to offend them. Relationships strain and can end when someone says they accept you for who you are, but then start demanding changes to your core values. But please recognize that only you truly know what those values are, and need to be candid when you want someone to understand them. People often forget or ignore this when they want to secure a romantic relationship with someone. They allow the love interest to influence changes to their core values, not realizing the damaging effects to not only their psyche, but to relationships with other people they care about. Always be willing to reassess who you are. Wise is the pursuit of improvement. But don't let someone steal your sense of self arbitrarily. Spend time and energy with people who most appreciate you for you. Avoid wagging the dog or playing a hypocrite if protecting the planet is truly important to you. Corporate interests will always lead you to small or insignificant ways to help the planet, things that don't affect their bottom line, while diverting you from ways that can actually save it. They make sure the finger is never pointed towards one of the most significant harms to the planet, the small device that fits in your pocket, the smartphone, or if you prefer, cell phone, because it would take away from their 24/7 access, monitoring, conditioning, and non-stop ability to sell you stuff. And when I say smartphone, I'm not just referring to only the device itself, but to other products with similar functionality and the entire infrastructure to make it all work. It takes an astronomical amount of planetary resources to make it all run, something to keep in mind the next time looking down at the screen, wanting the shiny new one, or asking the air to play your favorite song or to turn on the light. The tech itself is not inherently bad. There is no question it adds huge benefits to life today. But corporate design and continued manipulation of the system encourages overuse and has made it into an addiction for a lot of people, even promoting ideals like the refusal or perceived inability to do anything without having one with you, or even more disgustingly, to act as a surrogate parent to occupy and raise inconvenient, bothersome youth. And this is why you won't hear many people, some of them the most staunch environmentalists, speak on this, because of overdependence and over-reliance groomed over time. The solution is, of course, simple. Moderation. Not just saying it, or agreeing with it and then doing nothing, or downloading an app to enforce it and then ignoring said app's function, but actually employing it. But what is acceptable moderation? I'm sure it's going to be different for everyone, but one might try cutting down their current usage by a fourth, or any percentage really, to start. How much for Mother Earth, right? So I say, don't be afraid to use the occasional straw for your drink, and put down, or better yet, turn off the smartphone more often. And something so simple and easy, but in today's world it seems easy to forget, is watch where you're going. A smartphone can be a dangerous distraction. Make it a point to stop text walking, and absolutely do not text while operating a vehicle. That includes sitting at a red light, or operating machinery, or really any activity that can harm yourself or others. Make keeping people safe a priority over an object, or one's foolhardy over-reliance a periphery. And let us not forget common and decent courtesy as well. Turn off the darn thing, and keep it off when visiting the movie theater. And probably most importantly, make it a point to be present. Don't let devices and systems beyond your focus situation rob you of the essential energy attained from sharing unobtruded time with other human beings, especially in same physical spaces. Don't let giving someone your undivided attention become a rarity. Seek to fully engage yourself with others without distraction. When visiting relatives, friends, or people in person, consider turning off the smartphone, or maybe place it into a mode where it can't distract, or even consider leaving it at home. A gesture I've used before, and feel free to use it as well, is meeting up with someone, telling them to hold on for a sec, taking out my smartphone and placing it on the table and powering it down, saying, "Let me turn this thing off. I want to spend time with you," or "I really want to hear what you have to say." You'd be surprised on how appreciated this has been received. Also remove or disable any other distracting tethered devices as well, such as smartwatches, smart glasses, smart earbuds, and the like, and really be present. If you've ever felt anxiety not having immediate access to one of these devices when not in dire circumstance, then it might be time to seek help. And if you ever want to test that with someone, the next time you want to physically hang out with them, ask them to leave the smartphone or similar devices at home or just turn them off, and see how many excuses you get as to why they quote-unquote need to have it available. Though I believe most of these excuses are driven by corporate groomed dependency, which is designed to incessantly prod at basic human emotions to get a reliance response, I also think some forget, or don't know any different, that there was a time before smartphones, and people lived and functioned fine without them. So I'm sure you'll be able to debunk every single answer you get and see each need turn into a want, though in those cases, that could be scarier if a person continues their stance of refusal to hang out unless having immediate access to a device, essentially choosing a hunk of plastic, glass, and metal over a real person. You'd be surprised, though, at how many alternate to a smartphone solutions one can come up with if taken the time to think it through. And sure, smartphones may do some of these things better, and some may argue they can still be present while still having one of these devices active on them. Just don't let them use the multitask defense, since human multitasking has all but been debunked. But the cost of interrupting actual human connections still remains the effect, something no one should have to constantly compromise. I myself have never been afraid to tell someone I plan to meet up with, if it's not a good time to set aside the smartphone, then we can get together another time when they aren't so busy, or at a time where it isn't essential for others to have immediate access to them. And if the excuses start involving safety, then corporate engineered use of fear has really succeeded. Manipulation through one of the most primal of human feelings, further generating immediate but false essentiality. This isn't to discount all situations, especially ones with higher risk potential, like rock climbing, for example, or other extreme outdoor activities where the chance of injury may necessitate a quick call for medical response, or even meeting up with someone you've just met or don't know at an unfamiliar, away from the public location. Though again, the smartphone can be left off or airplane moded until actually needed. But if the feeling of potential imminent danger becomes a matter for all situations, then that well-calculated coercion has done its job. Corporations want you to live in fear and utilize every tug at every emotion to make it feel like nothing in your life can be done without having one of these devices always on you. If you want to experience just how distracting one of these devices can be, here's a cool experiment you can try. The next time you spend time with someone, force yourself to physically leave the room each time you want to check or use your smartphone or connected device. This can take some concentration, as many are used to looking at or interacting with their devices without thinking. But if you do it right, I think you'll be surprised just how many times it takes you away from a focused situation, and it may just help you sympathize with people who feel frustrated by constant interruptions. And I've been asked by some, what if I want to show someone something on my phone, like pictures of my vacation or stuff like that? Or maybe I just want to capture the moment with a selfie. Or maybe my friends and I just want to listen to some tunes. I think that's all well and good when it's part of the direct interaction with someone, but it doesn't mean the smartphone can't be turned off afterwards or put into a mode that thwarts distractions or interruptions to the focused situation. In the end, you have the power to play an undistracted role in your interactions with people. And if you choose to, you may just find some of those deeper connections you've been longing for or didn't even realize existed. And full circle, if protecting the planet is important to you as well, these suggestions serve a double purpose of ways to moderate your smartphone use to help Mother Earth. 2 birds, 1 stone, and all that. Demand honest business and avoid shady pricing. Speak with your wallet, not just saying the words, but put it to action. Perfection isn't the name of the game here, because unscrupulous companies and some selling their wares constantly come up with new ways to con you out of your money. But if you say you aren't going to buy something because of suspect business practices, then follow through and don't buy it. Anything else is just plain dishonest and continues to let anti-consumer entities know that it's okay to employ corrupt tactics and push the envelope even further. But show them that hidden and unnecessary fees Anti-consumer microtransactions and downloadable content, sometimes referred to as DLC, especially Day 1 paid DLC, monetization systems that appear in games only after their reviews come out, loot box and other randomized prize systems that include options to spend real-world money to acquire beyond the initial price of the base game, in-game currency conversion systems that allow you to convert real-world money into gems, coins, shards, tickets, or whatever the game or software decides to call them, time saver systems that allow you to pay real-world money to reduce grind in a game or actually playing the game, multiple dodgy, confusing product SKUs, removing, reducing, and piecemealing once-free things now to vend, like cosmetics, difficulty modes, and even the ability to save one's game, etc. Creating intentional unnecessary problems just to sell you solutions. Selling broken or unfinished products and expecting full price, and that includes games that need to be fixed or require necessary patches to even run or run correctly after you purchase them. Invasive digital rights management software, otherwise known as DRM, and other unreasonable copy protection software on digital goods because it only serves to hurt people who legitimately buy the product, gambling systems in games rated for kids, unfair guidelines on how you can use a product after you purchase it, and other unprincipled systems and tactics are unacceptable. And though numerous things I mentioned are rooted in gaming, the scope is for all shady business practices, applying to other products and services as well. Demand honest, principled, layman easy to understand, transparent business. Avoid brand loyalty, and instead embrace quality loyalty. Require companies to deliver acceptable, if not exceptional, products and services for your hard-earned money. Recognize that not everything is a conspiracy. Yes, don't ignore, dismiss, or condone nefarious and corrupt activities, but also don't mire yourself in fear that everything is out to get you or that you alone are responsible for exposing or fixing all the wrongs in the world. Be open to hearing ideas that buck the status quo, but balance your temperament and don't let every like story lead you down the path of deep anxiety. Always keep aware and your eyes, ears, and mind open, but don't spend most of your life in fear. Life is too short. Balance your exposure to the news. It's natural and beneficial to stay in the know, but too much bad news can adversely diminish one's happiness. With many of us not able to resolve all the issues in our own lives, how can one expect to take on all the problems of the world on top of that? Try curtailing your news intake for a set amount of time. This can cause some apprehension due to a feeling of disconnection, but see how you feel after you get over that hump. You may just start to see that sun peek out from behind those clouds. Frugality over cheapness. You can live your life money conscious without being a miser. If someone of importance to you has ever called you cheap, make it a point to read or watch Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, or any number of its close adaptations. Ask yourself, are you a Scrooge? Not in the mean sense, but in the sense that you go out of your way not to spend a dime of your money, avoiding functions that require money, conveniently leaving your wallet at home, or other situations that negatively affect your close relationships in your pursuit of and ideals towards money, even when it wouldn't drastically affect your living expenses or life goals such as retirement or paying off existing debt. Of course, don't live your life on the other edge of the spectrum, spending too much money or incurring irresponsible amounts of debt, never having enough to live on. But don't constantly live in fear, avoiding generosity to others and also yourself. And most important, do not live your life as a mooch. Are you the guy or gal who turns down activities unless others pay for you? Do you rarely or never offer to pick up the tab, or only do so in the cheapest of circumstances in comparison to what others do for you, based upon your necessary cost of living expenses, of course? Do you avoid bringing up paying for your share, or maybe have a habit of telling people you'll pay them back later and never do? Do you consciously or passive-aggressively make others feel bad when money isn't spent on you? I don't recollect anyone I know who likes a mooch, unless they are said mooch, of course. I believe that friendships end the moment everyone starts counting up what everyone else owes them. And my final adage is, be Wiggly. What does that mean? It simply means bring happiness to those around you. Wiggly represents things that make me smile, like those wiggly ears on the Baby Yoda. Or if you prefer, the wiggling your villagers do in Animal Crossing New Horizons. Or if you're really old school, Alfalfa's wiggling ears from the Little Rascals. Maybe not literally wiggle your ears, but pursue ways to bring joy to this world. Man, I wish I was born with Baby Yoda's wiggly ears. Chicks dig those wiggly ears. Thank you very much for watching and listening to this introduction to my channel. I hope you enjoy the content I make here, and I'd like to leave you with these parting words. Remember, you always have a right to your opinion, but only I have a right to mine. Until next time, stay wiggly, my friends.